Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Here on Sunday nights, we have a live show, Chatters Live. It's a little bit different, just a little bit different than what I do during the week, the Monday to Friday, the What's My Good Cheer. But because What's My Good Cheer is so heavy, we leave one day off to the side to try and do it a little bit lighter. I can't help myself. I am who I am, and I will try because I know that this is my platform, and it's up to me to get that word out there, that good cheer, right? That good cheer that so many people out there don't recognize, that just in a thought they can bring about something a little bit better than the last thought that they had, right? Oh my goodness, so many of us, we struggle in our lives. All of us do. And it doesn't matter, if you've been with me for any length of time, I always say we are in the same storm, the exact same storm. Everybody in this world is in the exact same storm. But some of us are clinging to logs in a crazy ocean, right? Full of sharks and lightning and no hope in sight. Some of us are in fishing boats and we are working hard to make sure that we're bringing enough food for the rest of the tribe, that no matter what, each one of us has a capability and we can bring something to the table. And if that survival depends on that fish, right? That's what you're going to do. You're going to fish, rain or shine, storm or calmness, right? Doesn't make a difference. You are a fisherman. Then there's the Coast Guard, right? In the same storm, and they are out there literally saving lives, right? They're out there risking their own well being, their own life possibly, to help others to be able to weather the storm. Then there are those, right, that are dancing on the cruise ship, right? They're spending the whole night or the whole storm, right? Dancing away, and they don't even know what's going on out in the world. And I think for a big part of my life, I really wasn't truly aware of what was going on in the world. I think it was growing under growing up and understanding my place in the world, right? Or accepting my place in the world and not venturing out too far out of my vicinity, my surroundings. For the most part, it would have been my own family. My family were like, I don't know why we were city folk, because my parents didn't have friends over. Us kids didn't have friends over. We weren't a very outside social family, right? Now waking up to some of these ideas, right? At a more mature age, at an age that, I can go back in, because I'm not somebody who cries over spilt milk. There's a lot that I cannot control. But when I'm triggered in the life that I'm living right now, it's my responsibility to kind of work on those things, to go back into my own life and just kind of first figure out why it triggered me. And usually it comes from our childhood, right? The way we grew up, the way we were dictated to, the way we were mentored within our own families and our own communities, right? The good experiences and the bad experiences. And that's the nurture, right? That gets attached to the nature sometimes. And we grow up to not recognize, who we really are, because we've lived somebody else's life. We have willingly given our life in order to take care of others, to be those coast guards, right? To make those sacrifices. But if you committed to that, right, that's your duty. And at the same time, that's your glory, because that's pretty amazing. those are my those are my light in the darknesses, and those are the people that are attracted to my content, those ones that, right, smile through their own pain, that help others, right, when they can barely help themselves, to whistle while they work. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, right? It's all in the attitude, right? And, a lot more people would be well to do to understand not to cry over spilt milk. We are moving in a digital age, for our generation. You could say it doesn't really matter. Our lives are coming to an end. But you know what? I plan on being around for another 40 years, and probably, right, if I can talk, if I can hit that go live button on my computer. And at that point, it's probably going to be something else, because computers are not very old, are they? 20, 25 years, right? I'm very grateful. I don't know how I got drawn in to being on these platforms and getting to understand a little bit, because I'm not a technical person, but I am a communicator, and that was the nurture in all truth. Maybe it was part of the nature, and somehow I found that nature in that bit of nurturing that came into my life, because learning to work with people came from waitressing. It came from bartending. It came from the need and the want to belong, to different groups, to have friends. And, it made it so I had no choice. I had to kind of step out of what was comfortable for me. And believe me, there wasn't too much that was comfortable for me, right? Because I refused to be anything except who I was. And I'm saying who I was because I'm constantly changing all the time. So, whoever I am in the moment, right, I'm not willing to sacrifice those lessons that I worked so hard to bring into my system, to bring into my life, to bring into my conversations, to bring into my adventures, and to bring into my YouTube channel. What just came into my mind just now was, Cindy, it's Sunday. We're going to keep it light. But I am so excited to be here, you guys. I haven't spoken to anybody at all today, and that's the honest truth, right? I don't feel bad about that, in all honesty, because I do like that time for myself. But as of late, you guys know that I have been spending a lot of time by myself. And I'm saying that, but I'm saying that in a way because I have to appreciate that I am tying up a lot of loose ends. I feel like it's loose ends that I'm tying up, because I feel a lot more solid in what I'm doing, in the way that I want to move and what I want to bring to the table, right? You always knew it was going to be the mindset, but to really get highly focused and on who I'm going to help and how I'm going to help, right? Still leaving myself open to ideas and miracles and blessings, and right. And let's shoot a little bit off to you guys, and let's stop for 1 second because I got the reminder again. Cindy, it's Sunday. We're keeping it light here. Okay, who's in here? Owen. Hello, Owen. in here first. You like my shirt? This is actually a beach here in Manitoba. Yes, believe it or not, I live in the prairies and we have beaches. We have one of the largest lakes, two of the largest lakes in Canada. You can actually see them on the map. You can just have, or on a universal globe or something. Just pull it to Canada. Look for those spots with the largest lakes, and you'll find Lake Winnipeg and Lake Manitoba. Grand Beach is on Lake Winnipeg. So I got this at that great little job that I have, right? That allows me to pick up clothing that, that suits me. That, right? It's that bright color, it's that mood that I want to bring to myself, and it's that mood that I want to bring to my live show. More importantly, it's comfy, it's lightweight, and it's very comfy. We're coming out of a heat wave, you guys. I won't have much time to wear my hoodies because we hit the high 30s, which is close to 100 degrees. We did that for a few days this week. It was so hot, and nobody had their air conditioners in except for me. I was smart and I like it cold. When it's spring, soon as the snow's gone, I got that air conditioner going. I like that. If you guys saw my setup, you guys just might have a little giggle to yourself because I have this great big fan that's dangling from a curtain rod from my ceiling all the way down to my pillow height on my bed, and my face is a foot and a half away from this great big huge fan, and it blows in my face all night long. uh I don't know, you guys. The fire trucks have been going all day. I'm sending some good cheers. Please get to your destination, and it's a false alarm, right? Sending out some good cheer. They've been going all day. I have no idea. It just seems like right before I went live, the fire truck went by, and it does stop me in whatever I'm yibber yabbering about when the trucks go by, because I try my hardest to send some good cheer. I don't know how many hits I get that it ends up being a false alarm, right? But if it's even one good hit, then it's worth it. And right before I went live, the fire truck went by. I sent the good cheer and I made a mental note. Oh, good, right? It's not going to interfere with my live show. That's why I know that these trucks have been going all day, because I have stopped. I live on a main drag. I live right behind the fire station. So every time they start up and go on a run, right? They're usually coming down my street to get downtown. Especially that street is Osborne is just, it's not good traffic for the fire trucks. They always get stuck like that. I tell you, and I stand on the sidewalk because I'm out for my walks all the time. I'll stand on the sidewalk and I'll just look at these people driving. I said, it's like, get on the sidewalk. Like, don't just wait for the person in front of you to move over. Like, this fire truck has got somebody to save. Like, right. And I talk, and I know nobody's listening to me. And sometimes I'm not even vocalizing it loudly, but in my head, I am. And it's really funny because yesterday I learned something new. I don't know if I can get the terminology right for this condition, but this um, inner voice that some people don't have, they don't talk to themselves. They can't see. Like, remember what I said when I came in live tonight, that I haven't even spoken to anybody today. I've just spent the whole day with myself, and how excited I am to do my live tonight, because this is the first time that I've had a conversation. But in truth, it's not the first time I've been having conversations with myself all day, like literally conversations. And even when I'm in contemplation, it's just not letting stuff coming to me. I'm having conversations with my stuff, with myself. I even like twice washed dishes today just so I could contemplate, so that I could have a little. I'm not a meditator, you guys. I don't know if you guys are meditators at all. My dad was big on meditating. He meditated twice a day for 20 minutes all his life. I've never known him not to do that. It was very important to him. And I remember too, we'd always get yelled at if we made any noise. Well, dad was doing his meditation, because he usually go into the bedroom and he'd sit on the end of his bed and he would do it, right? Lots of times he do the hypnotizing stuff too. He loved the hypnotize. But right, I was the only willing guinea pig for his love for hypnotizing. So my dad was constantly hypnotizing me. I don't know what he got in there. I'm sure there's some goodies in there. And if I ever could spend some proper, I will have that all dug out, because I'm sure there are lessons for me. Maybe, right? He stashed a little something away for me, knowing that, he might not be around and I would need this perfect little advice, this little tidbit, right? It was his favorite things. The hypnotist would come to town, and sometimes they would get like what do you call, the playhouse, or the theater for the orchestra and stuff, and they'd rent those places, and they would fill them up with people, and there would be people across. Oh, every time they came to town, my dad would take me to these hypnotists, and I was like, Cindy, get up there, go, right? And it wasn't necessarily for kids. And I didn't think to ask my dad, like, why wasn't he not because it was his love, his passion. How come he wasn't getting on the stage? Why is he pushing me to get up on the stage, right? And especially it would be hard to push me to get on the stage, because as even though, like, I love being with my dad, I did have social issues. He wasn't home all the time, and I was to the demise of my experience that I was having, that he wasn't around to know I was having, and it did cause me issues, right? And I was a little fat kid. I did not want to be seen, right? For at least that what I thought I was in the moment, right? Everybody needs to be seen. Everybody needs to be heard, and we have to make those choices for ourselves to make that happen. But in that day and age, I was just a shy little chubby girl, and I was not getting up on any stage. But I'd go to those shows with my dad. He was just such an experiencer. I'm so grateful that I had the dad that I did. That life we had, it was dynamic, and it was probably not the most ideal in the moment place for me to be brought up in, and may have caused some issues in the end. But right, I'm here. I'm treading water, and you know what? Everything is going to be okay. Everything always is going to be okay. And people don't recognize that we are all in the same storm. We all are in the same storm. And so it's important for us to, right? Smile, entertain ourselves, entertain each other. Oh my goodness, my husband, he was cute. My husband was cute and sexy. But he couldn't remember garbage day 4 if his life depended on it. But he had beautiful, magical qualities about him. And one of those qualities was the way he made people feel, the way he made people feel appreciated, how he made people feel like they weren't alone, how he made people feel like, they had somebody who's got their back. And, sometimes he would be the first to offer up assistance or offer up company to somebody because he recognized that somebody needed it. And it was an amazing quality. And, in that chameleon trait that I have, it was something that I was privileged to be around, and right. And it's who we rub with. And I rubbed with a lot of. He couldn't remember garbage day 4. He was totally useless when it came to housework or even mowing the grass. But he had his qualities, right? And the only reason I'm saying that is because he was in the military. And I don't know what kind of soldier he was, right? That was his life. That was his career. And I was an army wife. I was there to support my man. And I did the very best. I did the very best that I can. Could I have done better? 100%. I could have done better, but I could have done worse too. And he could have done worse. And that's the truth. But I'm only saying that is because you know, he hung with master corporals and sergeants. And if you know anything about the military, they are very elite to their rank, right? So, sergeants don't hang out with privates, master corporals do not hang out with the privates. I mean, they have junior ranks and all the privates hang out at the junior ranks, and right, all the higher ranks, all the corporals and master corporals and sergeants and right, all of them, they all hang out at the sergeant's mess. And it was a status thing, but my husband could work himself into those groups, and he was welcomed into his groups because of those beautiful traits that he had. If there was a storm, right, you would want him in your boat 100%. But then again, I'm thinking if there was a storm, you probably want yeah, you probably want me in your boat too. Me and my gazillion books that I've been collecting. Right? I got everything. Right? We're going to learn about plants, right? Which I do all the time, to learn about how to can and preserve food, how to build primitive housing on my own, right? Survival bags. I am ready to go, but, right? That is in my hypervigilance, right? And this is what I could do for myself to help me feel like everything is going to be okay, right? Because I need that little bit of comforting. I need that little bit of stability in my life. And for each one of us, we're going to do it a little bit. It's just like my vitamins, right? You come into my house, you'll go, Cindy, I got a headache. You got an aspirin? I'm going to say, sorry. And you'll find my vitamins everywhere. Like, right? Because I'm also always, what do you call that? I do recipes, when I feel like I'm missing out on a little something, right? If I need a little bit of turmeric, I just bought turmeric. I think I took turmeric for 2 or 3 days, and now I got a full bottle of turmeric in my desk here, right? That I'm not using. But then I go on these runs, and you know, um, and it makes me feel like everything's going to be okay. And you know what? Everything's going to be okay when it comes to my health. I have to attribute. Which ones are these? These are just multi gummies. So these are just my multivitamins. But, I have them all, right? I have them all here. But I rotate them to the way that I feel, to the things that I need. We're coming out of the winter, so I'm not going to need as much vitamin D because I'm going to get a lot of sun on my walks and stuff. So the vitamin D will put away, but I'll have to put the vitamin C on board. Maybe I might not have to. I mean, I'm drinking more juices and less sodas. I'm trying to cut the sodas back a little bit for the budget wise, but also in the understanding, the pop is not good. In South America, you guys, it's a real problem. Three-quarters of the population in South America is morbidly obese, and they've specifically linked it to the soda. They drink a lot of pop in South America. Yeah. But they use the cane sugar too in their Coca-Cola, right? Or their Pepsi, whatever the sodas are. Let me have a sip of my coffee. How's everybody doing tonight? Hi, Kathy. Hello, Andrew. Same here, Cindy. I live a few blocks up the street from the fire station. Trucks go past my place maybe 40 feet from my window with sirens going full blast. Do you sing good cheer? Andrew, that would make me happy if you did that. Make me even happier if you do that because Cindy does it, right? Who's to say? We never know who we are impacting, you guys. We never know. Yeah. Oh, I sure do make a good cup of coffee. I forgot to bring some juice, and I broke one of my favorite glasses. These are the Anchor Hawking, they call them. They're like from the 1960s, these glasses. And last night I dropped one on the floor and it shattered into a gazillion pieces. I always get like a little heartbroken in the instant. But I just right away, you grab the dustpan, you sweep it up, and the sooner you get it out of your sight, right, the sooner it's out of your mind, right? That's how I do my spring closet, my winter closets, right? This can go, this can go. I don't need this. I don't need, oh, I love this. You never wear it, Cindy. Just put it off to the side, right? And if it needs to go back in the closet, it can go back in the closet. And then I just put it away and then throw it away or donate it. I very rarely will throw things away unless I've got a stain on something because I know that thrift stores, they don't take clothes if they're spotted or they got holes in them. So we inspect everything before we put it out onto the floor to make sure that everything's in good shape. We miss things every once in a while, but that's what we do. So I know there's no point in giving a ripped shirt or a shirt that's got no buttons or because, right, it's much better to give that to somebody on the streets than it is. Or sometimes what I do is when I have laundry, I'll wash it, and then after my load of laundry is done, I'll just fold it up and I'll leave it on the folding table, and somebody can take it away. I do that with my winter coats. I usually buy a few winter coats, and I just leave them on the folding table. Lots of people here in this building that I live in are vulnerable. My sister is just waiting to get the date, you guys. She's going in for quadruple bypass surgery. It's pretty serious surgery. 70% of four of her major arteries are clogged. It's pretty serious. She's distressing, and we haven't seen her. So I try to text her every once in a while. And I try to be optimistic, but you guys know me. Like sometimes I'm just a little bit overly optimistic and I'm throwing out the little healthcare ideas, and she finds that very irritating. And she lets me know right away, you're stressing me out, right? So I just trying to stop it, but at the same time, it's not good for her to spend all that time by herself where she's just in a state of waiting for the date that she's going into the hospital, right? My sister does not like hospitals, but she has been in and out of the hospitals now for quite a few years. For quite a few years, and it's time for a little bit of good to come into her life 100%. So if anybody wants to throw my sister a little bit of good cheer, if you want to, Andrew, want to give her a little prayer, I know you're amazing at that. Her name is Tracy, and yeah, just maybe something that will help to calm her system down, so that maybe she feels a little bit more confident about doing this again, right? Like spilt milk, sometimes we don't have a choice, right? It is what it is. And at 70% clogged arteries, she doesn't have a choice. That's my sister. We're all trying to get into the 60s together. That would be absolutely amazing, because in my family, going back generations and generations, people just usually don't last more than into their 40s, right? There's a lot of heart disease, a lot of diabetes. And yes, there's been a lot of breakthroughs in the diabetes. And again, that's why my grandmother got to live up a little later. My mother, she got to live to be in her 70s, but it was almost a miserable experience, because she had 12 different types of rheumatoid arthritis, and her hands were just clenched like this, right? And every time she'd make a cup of coffee, she held her cup up like this. A couple of years before she passed away, they put her on a new trial drug, and we go to visit her, and she would be so proud of herself. She'd go, "Cindy, look it." And she'd have her fingers open a little bit, right? And it would be shocking, because, since she was 30 years old, her hands were been locked solid with the arthritis, right? If you know anything about the rheumatoid. But just before she passed away, she was able to do like this with her fingers. It was incredible. This was a trial drug that they had my mom on. The cancer got her in the end, and but I don't know if they attributed it at all to the trial that she was on, because my mother, she chewed Tylenols like they were candy, and she did a lot of, like, she go through one of those big jars in like a week. So her stomach was totally right. It's those coatings. It's why I do the gummies now, right? It's to get off the coatings on the vitamins. It's the coatings that I think that are so terrible. So I went to the gummies in my vitamins. I feel so much better taking that, right? But again, it's in our choices, and innovation. It's getting to be so amazing. They say that we are, I'm just babbling today, you guys. I'm coming into the comments every once in a while, but if I'm on a flow, let me be in my flow, because it's a gooder, I think, tonight. But I was in this video, and they were saying that mankind is every year is doubling the amount of knowledge that we are capable of accumulating. This, right? Not as one person, but as a whole, a human race, that we are doubling. This is how fast this day and age is moving right now. It's doubling, you guys. Knowledge is doubling. And it's important for us to keep at that speed, right? To keep up with the world, to keep up with the majority. There may come a moment when this digital age crashes, maybe a meteor hits in, or some kind of electronic, telluric, ground level experience we have, and right, we won't be able to chat this way. But I can tell you, I will be on the Trans Canada Highway, and I will be moving towards Charbot Lake. Keep that in mind if you want to meet me there. If anything should happen in this world, I'm just hitting the road, and it might take me a year to get there if I'm walking, right? But that's where I'm heading, right? I'll be heading there. So if there any, because I'm going to, I am never giving up, right? I've got my bag ready to go. And I just laugh at myself and my wheelie, and I just see this to myself. And it's funny, because I was thinking about this. Was it this morning? Maybe it was this morning I was thinking about it. I don't mean to trail off into something else now. But this morning, you guys might have remembered this when I was in my last apartment, and right, COVID had hit, and I had no way to pay my rent. I was crashing so hard. I thought I was truly going to come homeless, that there was no help for me at all. Look at the smile on my face when I tell that, because it was a very scary time for me. I didn't have the lessons that I have now. I would be happy to know that if I'm handling a little bit better now than I was then. I'm not at that stage yet, but from the experience that I had, right? It's been 5 years now. I don't ever want to be in that experience ever again. And I promised myself that it would never get that serious ever again. And I find myself in this situation that if I don't play it right, this is the way I think. If I don't play it right, if I don't have the right lessons, the right motivation, the right mentorship in this, right? The gumption to do it, then it very easily could be the same situation, right? I just kind of giggle to myself and I go, oh my goodness, Cindy, did you just get yourself a 360? So I contemplated on it and I said, no, I just got a lesson. That's all I got was a lesson in something to watch for, something to look for, something that's possibly something detrimental that might hurt me in the future, right? And I just have to let this whole experience play out so I can actually recognize that, I've been making some good moves, that I've been making some good decisions, even if it doesn't look that way, right? I'm not one to cry over spilt milk. I own the decisions that I make, but I also own the fact, too, that a lot of those decisions I make are made in those hyper vigilant, or maybe in those hairy scary moments where I'm just trying to, like, get away from me, right? I don't want a part of this, and I'm just trying to dump it, right? So I have to make sure that I'm not making rash decisions that will take away from all that great work that we've done, right? And I'm saying we've done because I don't think I could have done it without you guys kind of keeping me company in what I'm doing. And that's the truth. Okay, let's come down in here. Um, Andrew says hot and overcast in Bloomington Friday. Then we had, you had tornadoes, Andrew? Did you see a tornado? There has been some damage. Sadly, one life was lost, but things could have been much worse. My area was unaffected. Do you live in a tornado alley? Bloomington. I'm thinking that you do live in an area that is prone to tornadoes. I know we had 2 touchdowns here in Manitoba, little ones though, or maybe it wasn't 2 here in Manitoba, but 2 in Canada, because now I'm thinking it was in Edmonton, right? That 1 touchdown. And I remember when I lived in Edmonton, when I was putting in my garden, I was finding pitchers and dishes and all kinds of things. And I just like, what is all this stuff? And I don't know if it was one of my husband's friends or a coworker or something, just said, Cindy, that's from the tornado, because that tornado that hit Edmonton, can't remember the year now. was a really bad one. It took out a lot. It just threw everything absolutely everywhere. As people for a lifetime will still be digging up stuff in their gardens for sure. But I found it very curious because I was finding like photographs and picture frames and right home decor and stuff like this in my garden. But yeah, it was crazy. But that's the thing, you gotta watch for that hot weather, but there's humidity too. That's right. Or there's going to be a real quick drop or a real quick in the temperature. And I tend, when I see those patternings, know that there's a possibility of something crazy town going on when it comes to the weather. Hot and overcast in Bloomington. Andrew, the news coverage of the tornadoes looked awful. Thankfully, you were not greatly affected. Thinking about all those who were, oh, there were lots of people who were hurt. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Andrew says he'll put in a little prayer for my sister. Right. I pray differently. I kind of have conversations. So maybe, I can consider those prayers. I just, you know, this and this, it just doesn't feel like me when I do that. And so I tend to have conversations, like I said, when I'm washing the dishes or doing house chores. Lots of times I'll just shut everything down and I'm just in silence. I did it for a couple of hours today, just in silence, just piddled around the house, did things, made baked bread. I yeah, can't remember what I did, but I piddled around. I got some things done. But it feels good. Everything is shut down, the air conditioner, right? I don't like the loud noise of things. I don't mind the whir of my fan in my face. It's a calming sensation for me. But when things get really loud, when I have like this big engine in my air conditioner going on to the point where I have to turn the volume on whatever I'm taking in on the moment in the lessons, and I have to turn the volume up in that, and it's just a lot, right? So I've been appreciating the silence. Tomorrow will be a go outside day. It's not going to be very warm today. It actually snowed last night. Crazy. I looked outside and I says, is it raining? Right? And then I thought, no, is that pollen coming off the trees? Because the leaves are filling up the trees now, right? And I looked and I went, oh my goodness, that's snow. We just hit 100 degrees in the temperature like not 2 days ago. And I'm looking at snow now. I live in crazy town when it comes to weather. Manitoba has always been that way, right? And with the global warming, the things are a little bit different when it comes to weather now anyway. But the weatherman never ever got it right. The only ones who get it right are those gazillionaires in the Middle East who can afford to seed the clouds and bring rain into the desert, which is what they're doing. Crazy, crazy, right? But we have no control, right? Sometimes we could set those alarms and tornado warning, but we have to watch for the tornadoes, right? We're not going to lock ourselves up in the bunker for a week. We need to see that weather truly is. I mean, you might not even see a cloud in the sky. I know it doesn't take a long time, but if those dark clouds you can see are like 2 miles that way, then you can assume that you can wait a few minutes just to make sure that tornado is not going to make a crazy a crazy turn in that, right? But we have no control over the weather, right? We had Craig. Oh, his name is Craig. He CKY. Yeah, he was our news, our weatherman on our news broadcast. I don't watch the news anymore. I pop in a little bit more than I did. I used to pop in once every couple of weeks, but again, the world is being stirred up, and when the world is stirred up, things do come across my path, and I have to Google it and find out what's going on. I heard something um, in California happened today, and I had to Google to see if it was actually true, but it was just something that got stirred up in the conversations, right? But I knew Manitoba was having some forest fires, that they were having some difficult time, even with all the rain that we're coming out of in the past couple of days. They're still going. In my ex-brother-in-law's farm, beautiful farm. Oh my goodness, right where I had my winter fort for you guys. I was doing my videos out there, and that whole area is surrounded by wildfires, and it's a beautiful farm. I'd hate for anything to happen to that farm. It used to be well, it used to be a plowed field. We're going back decades and decades. It was just a big farm field. My brother-in-law had the dream. He wanted to turn it into a Christmas tree farm, and it was his dream, right? And he planted trees, and he spent 7 years, and he groomed them and pruned them and loved on them, and he opened up his Christmas tree lot, and he was selling Christmas trees every year. But then his trees got so tall. His idea was to sell the trees to other Christmas tree sellers, but he couldn't, right? He wasn't really a very good businessman. He was just following his dream. God had other plans for him anyway. He ended up taking care of the Hutterite colonies, because the Hutterite colonies don't go to hospitals if they at all possibly can. It's not part of their makeup in their community to seek out medical attention from doctors and surgeons and stuff. They usually pass on that. But my husband, my brother-in-law was a holistic healer, and he crack backs and right and get people's arthritis all sorted. Always wanting to crack my sister when she was suffering so bad with her heart and stuff. I can save you. I can heal you. Let me crack you. Oh, I'm glad that she never let him touch her that way. But how to write colonies, right? All day long. They would come and see him, all the different colonies. I got to meet a lot of the different colonies in this province, not just through my work, but through my brother-in-law, and they were so lovely, always baking him stuff lots of times, right? Instead of donating a few dollars to him, they would, right, bring him an apple pie or a jar of jam or a jar of honey or something, a turkey. I used to like the Hutterite chickens because they were so big. They were like turkeys, and they were cheap too. You could buy a whole Hutterite chicken this big, literally this big, for $5. I used to remember every Friday, 6 turkeys, because I was always dieting, right? Or 6 chickens. And I would live on chicken, and I had like a gazillion different recipes for chicken, and it was cheap way to eat, right? $30. I had enough money to live all week. What was coming into my mind when I was saying that, you guys? I was doing a little bit of prepping, right? Before I quit my job. Remember, I don't know, you guys, sure, I was talking about it, but I grabbed extra 20-pound bag of rice. I got a couple of 20-pound bags of flour. I got a big soup base container, so I had chicken base, so I could just live on soups. I bought bags of beans and lentils and peas and soup mix. I bought Kool-Aid and crystals and those squirty bottles with the liquid for the juices because I don't like, right? If something happened and I had to drink out of the river, I would have to have it flavored in order to be able to get. I know I'm a little bit, right? I'm funny. I'm funny that way, right? Wasn't always the case, but, right? We all have our little quirks, and I don't like to taste the chlorine in my water. And if something were to happen, I'm sure they wouldn't be divvying out bottled water, right? So we're going to end up having to drink the water out of our lakes and our rivers and stuff, right? And won't we be happy that we took care of them when we didn't have to, so that, right, they were ready for us when we did need them. And my glass. Oh, I feel so bad. Every time I look at these glasses now, they're my favorite juice glasses. And, every time I look at them, I think of that one I dropped on the floor and shattered into a gazillion little pieces. But yeah, this week, just studying, just in the lessons. Like I said, tidying up the loose ends in things that I've been working on, but then being totally amazed because there were lessons that I skipped. I don't know, maybe the thumbnail wasn't good, maybe the title of the lesson was not good, that I just bypassed it. And in some doing that little bit of tidy up, right? Some of that is taking in some lessons, going back over all the content and seeing what's pertinent that I might have missed. And I tell you, I missed out on so much. And I came in tonight live, and just before I went live, I kind of looked at my notes, show you my big mess. Kind of looked at my notes and I went, oh my goodness, like, what is this mess? Like, I've got like 6 or 7 different topics just on this one page. And I'm doing it in short, what do you call that? Shorthand. So I'm not even sure about what I'm talking about. Right? Right? I was talking about love and fair, the protector versus the punisher. Like, what the hell is that? I have no idea, but it was important enough for me that I felt I needed to write it down so I wouldn't forget. And guess what? I forgot. I don't know what it is. I was kind of also digging into a little bit about philanthropy, because I'm looking to serve, and I'm looking to give back, and lots of times, it's just like you guys being caregivers. That's philanthropy, you guys, right? That's you giving back, and people don't think that they're giving anything, that they have anything to contribute to the world. But if you are taking care of a loved one or a friend or a coworker, or just like my husband, right? Just making everybody feel like everything was going to be okay. That is philanthropy, that's service. And, I was looking to see about those things, right? It's not good enough to be a philanthropist, but what kind of philanthropist do I want to be? If you had asked me 10 years ago, I would want to save old architecture that needs to be brought up to date and has to match, certain code in order for it to be protected for its historical value. So I thought, oh, I would love to just kind of donate to architecture. But, as I'm delving into the lessons, that was before I was an urban explorer. Of course, I loved old architecture. But I love working in emotions. I love working and understanding where I got it right and where I got it wrong. And where I got it wrong, believe it or not, I really enjoy going back and seeing if I can resolve of some of that stuff that caused me to go a little bit kinked in my growth, right? I grew, but my branches, they grew crooked in lots of places in order to survive the extremes in the environment. Some of my branches grew along the ground so that the wind couldn't get it, right? Some of it wound around the trunk of the tree because it couldn't hold its own weight up and right, and it didn't want the wind to break its branches. You know, there are lots of things that I care about, that I resonate differently, right? So, I'd have to give to Mother Nature. Would have to be in the giving back in the provincial parks and protecting the environment so that, for generations going forward, that people be able to get away from their problems, get away from working for the man, getting away from what's holding them down, that they can go off into Mother Nature and be able to revitalize, to be able to dump whatever's heavy in their lives and then be able to get back to it with a fresh perspective or a little bit more energy or a little bit more understanding, right? Or a little bit more whistle while you work. That's true. But I'm looking at my notes here, so I couldn't even say I wanted to make a list of the types of philanthropy that I would like. Right? I don't even have big money. I'm thinking to myself, why are you making this list, Cindy? Because it's part of my dream. And as part of my dream, it has to be planned. It has to be envisioned. It needs to be, right? It has to be manifested in affirmations. It needs to be brought to existence. And so, what kind of philanthropist would I really like to be? Well, we have the architecture, right? For sure. We have the Mother Nature. No question. But what are those kids that grow up with parenting that was kind of like the way I grew up, right? All crooked. They grew up, but it was all crooked and kinked and right. Some branches aren't blooming leaves and it's just an analogy, but if you can read into that, those kids are not going to be coming up in the next generation because the next generation, right, is overcoming what our generation had trouble with. They'll have their own set of problems to work on. I truly understand that, right? So, and in believing that, it won't be necessary for me to bring these kind of lessons to the kids because I think the generations coming forward now will get those lessons within their own lives because their parents, their teachers, their guardianships, their communities, their networks, AI, digital age, it's all coming together to help to build a better, healthier, physically, emotionally, and mentally human being. But what about those who grew up in it? Like me. There are lots of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's never too late to get cracking on that work that will only serve you. It can only serve you, right? Because, well, these are my understandings about that. But I'll say for serving you, it's serving your family, it's serving those generations that come after you. That somebody's got to be first to say that's enough, right? That's right. That's it's like when we were kids and you listen to right with us, we'd listen to my mom and her Elvis Presley and we'd go, oh, that's just such old fogey music, right? Because by then we were listening to Aerosmith and Metallica, right? But mom was listening to the Elvis. And so we look at that. That's the old way of living. That's old fogey stuff. And, right? But that's true because that stays with us. That's a generation that hasn't followed through and followed up and followed along with generation that's growing up now, right? It's just like me in the digital age to be able to be just brought in with it. I'm not technically inclined, and here I am, a YouTuber, right? And that's pretty incredible. But that was by my own choices and in the determination to learn it, right? And in learning it, you guys know you've been with me for a long time. There were a lot of mistakes, still mistakes that are in place now that haven't even been looked at. But oh my goodness, there are some people out there not even trying. So can I at least be happy with that? Right? Be happy, be grateful, be proud. I'm entitled to be proud of that. I put a lot of work into that for myself. But I think in the end, they are lessons for everybody and anybody if they would want them to. If they could read my scrappy writing and I could get the message across properly. But this is the way I do notes. You guys, it's a funny story as to why I take notes like this. Just make sure there's nothing in there that you guys can't see. And that's just silly stuff. If I can't understand it, you guys definitely won't understand it. But look at scribbles, different topics of things that came across my path today. And I look at how I take notes, right? You could see I try to start off. Look at, I got a number 1, I got a number 2, and then it just goes, oh, there's a free spot up there. Ooh, scratchy. Oh, let's circle that because that must be important. Don't want to forget that. Put that in brackets, Cindy. Oh, you used the wrong word. This is a more appropriate word. Or geez, and it makes it so hard for me sometimes to even get what I'm trying to hold on to, because this is what it is. I'm trying to hold on to this stuff up here, or be able to give myself a signal that it can remind me to go delve in a little bit deeper into this. This is why I have this, what kind of philanthropist do I want to be? Make a list, Cindy. Okay, so that note is there. I know that I have to make a note. But I make my scribble notes like this, and this is a little bit of the butting head, because this goes back to me in high school and having to do a presentation in the class. And we talked about this not too long ago. And the teacher asked for my notes, right? He didn't ask for an essay or for me to theorize or anything, right? He didn't want chapters or anything. He wanted notes. And I did my notes like this. I had a whole little book like this full of notes on the project that I had presented. And he knocked my grade down when he asked for my notes. And I said, you want my notes? Okay, so I gave him my notes. And he came back at me and said, what are you giving me here? I says, I'm giving you my I'm giving you my notes, right? Because he didn't ask me for an essay. He didn't ask me for a presentation that way. The presentation was in my head, and it was being presented by my mouth and my heart. It wasn't being presented. I'm not somebody who could hold my notes and read from my paper. That's not the way, right? That wasn't the project that was put before me. It's not the way that I interpreted it. And it wasn't the way it was presented for me to interpret. So it was his fault. And I fought for that A. He gave me a B plus because it was pretty amazing, right? But he said to me, Cindy, he says, I guess they had a lunchroom teacher meeting and stuff. Of course, they were always discussing me, right? And they were always looking for ways that they could help me. They knew my problems. It was pretty obvious that I was having problems, and they weren't getting anywheres with my parents because there was no way my parents would come into the class or counselors for a meeting or anything like that ever. And they tried, teachers tried all the time because they couldn't crack me because my mother had me trained, right? You don't talk about the family. You keep your problems at home, right? You don't talk about our stuff. So I was a hard egg to crack to start with. But yeah, right? My parents weren't going to have any of that. You don't tell them how to raise their kids 100%. But I remember the teacher asking me, it was a project on architecture. We could pick any building we wanted and to present on the building. And I picked the Andrew Carnegie Library. And Andrew Carnegie was a philanthropist, and he gave money out to cities so that they could build libraries and museums and stuff. And that's exactly what they did in Vancouver. But this building was made of slab stone, and it was so amazing. The architecture was so amazing. But the reason that I was telling this story in philanthropy because of this building and this teacher asking me, why did you pick that building? I said, I don't know. I was 15 or 16 years old, right? And it wasn't a beautiful building in the neighborhood it lived in because it was right on drunk and heroin addict alley, the main drag where all the alcoholics and the drug addicts would hang out. They would sleep on the steps and pee on the wall. It was just, now the building is covered with scaffolding and stuff, like they're going to renovate it, but they're not. They're just trying to keep the riffraff away from the building. I actually think it's a needle exchange place where you can go and exchange needles and stuff, right? Or take drugs in a room in a safe space, right? But it used to be the Vancouver Museum, the Museum of British Columbia. It used to be the Vancouver Public Library during the labor strike, which was huge. The union, they were building unions when unions first started out, and there was big labor meetings and stuff. It became very famous because that was where everybody met every night, right? For the rallies and stuff like that. So it has a place in history. But I never put the two and two together, right? My scratchy chicken scratch notes, because I did notes exactly like I did. It's my little bit of retaliation, right? Right? Notes. I take lots of notes, but I take notes exactly like I did in that presentation. And I do it for a little bit of the butting head, like, right? Because now, because I conquered, because I won, I got my A. And so I do my notes like this. It's kind of that little reminder, that little ha ha ha. I did it, right? I was determined and I did it and I got the A I deserved. And I tell you, I wasn't an A girl, right? I wasn't even a B girl. I'd be very lucky to get a C minus in all truth. I was not good in school. School was not my forte. But I tell you, I sure do love learning now. I couldn't have been homeschooled either because, right, that dynamic family I had, that there was no possibility that I could have absorbed anything in homeschooling. And my mother only went to grade 7, so she wasn't capable, right? She could probably divvy out the lessons, but she would have no idea what the lessons were that she was divvying out in any way. So, but now on my own, teaching myself, I love it. I love, I love learning. And I keep it in my own realms, right? There's a lot of stuff. There's so many topics in the world. I delve a little bit into religion and spirituality, because I think it's important that when I have conversations, because we live in a world that's so dynamic in its cultural and its religious aspects, that out of respect for everybody, right, I don't want people to give up their faiths, right? We live in a world with a gazillion different faiths, and I would love to be able to interact with everybody that I come across in my life. You know, it didn't matter if they were a Jehovah Witness or a Sikh or Hindu, or it wouldn't matter, Hare Krishna. It wouldn't matter to me in any way. But you know, if you know a little bit, it can help to get you into a conversation. It can help you to get yourself a little bit closer to somebody in having that commonality. And even though it's a different religion, there are so many commonalities in all of the religions, you guys. It really is. It's just dressed up to the different culture. And then, right, the different traditions are added or subtracted if they don't fit well in their culture. Man's got their fingers in absolutely everything, right? For each of us, we have to pick through it ourselves. And that's one thing that I've learned. But, I do delve into a lot of different religions just out of that respect that I should be able to understand where a feeling or an understanding comes, whether or not it comes from an experience within the culture of their family, or if it comes from the tradition of a religion, right? So it either way, it's going to be have to be worked and played with a little bit differently. So I don't know why I got into that, but it all came from the idea of loving what I do, loving what I learn. And in my notes, could I be a little bit more tidier so that I could actually come back in and pick up where I left off, that I thought it was so important that I had to write it down? I could, but I probably won't, right? This is the way I do it. It makes what I do enjoyable. It's my little hee 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 hee. That's what it is. And for the most of the time I can come in. I'm usually not that off track on all the subjects, because I was in a lot of subjects today, but that was only because I was trying to get things done also, right? And also at the same time, I'm taking lessons in letting go. So again, when I said I came in and there's no music going on, no lessons in the background, it's just silence of me in my contemplation. That's just me letting go, just to see what can inspire me, right? Right? Because I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I've got a lot of energy to burn. I've been coming in and doing my lives at like quarter to 12 at night, right? And I know I can come in earlier, but I need that exhaustion of all of that burnt out of me, right? And when I see and I look at the clock and oh my goodness, it's getting close to bed, and then I'm still bubbling. Right? And I'm thinking, oh Cindy, maybe you should go for a walk and get a cup of coffee. And it's like 11:30 at night, right? And I'm just like, oh, why don't you just wait 15 more minutes? You do your live and then you go to bed. And it always works for me that way. But it would be so much better for me, I think, if I just really had a plan. I had a right, and I could in that daily schedule, but a lot of what I'm doing is just kind of like sitting in the chair, right? Right? Now, and I'm good with that, truly. I'm going to appreciate that when I'm 80 years old, but when I've got a lot of energy to burn, sometimes, right? I want to get going. I want to move. Tomorrow I will be outside, you guys. I will get outside tomorrow. I'll spend a few hours outside and just go for a nice long walk tomorrow. Um okay. Andrew says, Cindy, your note taking reminds me of what Virginia Woolf said, that nothing is real until you write about it. Oh, I like that. But you know what, Andrew, also? Writing is going to be a lost art form. AI is going to be AI in the next few generations, like I said, Andrew, like I'm here to help, right? People in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, because this next generation is going to be so on top of it. But they'll have their day when their kids say that they're the old fogies and they're old fashioned, and right? But but um but writing, that's probably going to come to a I don't think it's going to be around for too much longer, you guys. Right? We are dependent on the AI, maybe for another generation or two, I think maximum. That physically writing, no, it will all be AI. This week, like I said last week, I got invited by Google to be um, one of the first people to use the Gemini. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I check a couple of times a day to see if I'm up and running yet. They said it might take a month or so for it to be up and running. We'll see. I'll let you guys know what it's like. They probably invited me to it because I asked Google lots of questions. Even today, some of the questions, yeah, I'm so bad, you guys. Um, Before I quit my job, I grabbed another keyboard and I put it away because I'm always spilling my coffees on my keyboard. Sure enough, within a week of quitting my job, I spilled a coffee on my keyboard and I destroyed my keyboard. Well, you guys, yesterday, pulled my spare out, hooked it up, everything. I think I put it together last week, a week ago, a week and a half ago, a couple of days ago. I spilled another cup of coffee on my keyboard. And I fried it. None of my buttons work. I can pull up a keyboard on the monitor and just kind of cursor it if I really needed to, but I'll just go I'll just go to the thrift store and I'll buy a couple more. It's cheap to buy them at thrift stores. They're only a couple dollars, right? And I'll buy a couple for the next couple of cups of coffee. But I do it all the time. I'm so glad that I bought the spares, but the spares weren't even enough, right? So I'll make sure I grab a couple of keyboards when I go to the store. Me and my sister will probably be going thrifting this week. We did really good last week in the thrifting. Well, no, we've done better, but we haven't been thrifting. We just started back up again. We have family issues going on, so we were just kind of wrapped up with the family and with the life stuff going on. And in the lesson, you guys know it because it's moving around in your families and in your own lives too, right? But we're back at it, so we'll see. I am trying to make some movement for myself, so maybe we'll put a video together. I have footage, me and my sister, right? It never got put into a video. I've got a few videos that I can upload now because I do get in that momentum of, right, let's put a video, and then I watch it. Oh, this is so and then I'm off to doing something else, right? Because it's not my dream, right? Those aren't the videos that I want to be making. I want to be out on the road. I want to be doing provincial parks. I want to be with Mother Nature. I want to be doing the mindset. I want to be working in emotions. I want to be working with the clients. I want to be. I want, right? Yeah, but I want to get that list done because it's right. What kind of philanthropist do I want to be? I want to help the kids, right? And I think the best way I can help the kids is by helping the adults, right? Because the kids are going to get some help now. Everybody's recognizing what this digital age is doing to the mindset of the kids, that the kids are having some problems. They're spending too much time online and they're getting too far ahead of themselves. And like I said, every year of this digital age, we are doubling the information and the knowledge that we have. Is that crazy? We're doubling it from lifetime, for the whole lifetime that we've lived to the knowledge that we have till now. 1 year from now, we're going to double that same amount of knowledge, right? And then the year after that, it will be double. It's going to be, right? There has to be a crash somewheres along that. It just, right? How long can this go for? But as long as it's going for, I'm just going to gobble it up, right? Understanding that while I do have the books, but the books don't give to me like videos do, like actually sitting in a conversation, sitting in with the teacher, the professor, or the thought leader out there that I need to visually see who's presenting it, how they're presenting it, and how they feel about their presentation, right? It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be well presented, but the information has to be, it has to resonate. It has to feel like there's a possibility, that there's a truth, that there's, right, a way in that. And yeah, I don't get that same feeling as the books. I'm hyper vigilant. I want to see if somebody's telling me the truth, or somebody's lying, or somebody is just misunderstanding, right, in the experiences that they're having. There's a lot of that going on. Even with me, I caught myself doing that. I do that. Okay, here it is, you guys. Read into my last box of Kleenex. Remember last week? I was going crazy. I spent a lot of time. I must in total have spent an hour, maybe an hour and a half, looking for this $1.30 box of Kleenex that I knew I had, but it wasn't in the place where it's supposed to be. And it's still not there. Oh, right, because I gave it a new home. I gave it a home right here. I have a little table space right here, just big enough for my Kleenex box. And where was it? Right at my feet, sitting behind this little shelf underneath my desk. It was sitting behind there, and I caught right after the live show. You guys, it was right after my live show last Sunday. I was just cleaning up my desk after my live, and I pushed my chair out like this. And what's that? And I could tell by the color of the box. I knew exactly what it was. It was my box of Kleenex. But that day, you guys, I read into it because where could a box of Kleenex go? Right? I knew I had a box of Kleenex. I'm not going crazy, right? Right? I'm not seeing things. So where's my box of Kleenex? If it's nowhere's in my house, what happened to my box of Kleenex? And so I read into that, right? And so my imagination could do all kinds of silly things with that. Thinking that, did I throw it in the garbage? Is this a sign? Cindy, are you going senile that you can't remember where you put your stuff? No, I just dropped it on the floor, kicked it behind a little shelf. But I turned it into something huge, and I read into it, right? Which had nothing to do. But I did that a couple of times this week, right? I did that a couple of times. I did that a couple of times in reading to, well, I'm selling some things in my household right now, right? Because getting ready, because, when I retire, I am moving and I don't want to take all this crap with me, number one. Number two, just turning on the light. Sorry, you guys. There we go. Starting to get dark outside. But yeah, so I was selling some stuff. So, in those little interactions with the people who come by my house, and I've been able to put a roof over my head. I haven't been in want of anything. And all that money that I spent in the past year, I get to keep what I have now, and what I've sold in the past couple of weeks is kind of like paid for everything that I've purchased. Right? I even had a pair of coveralls that I put patches on. I got $100 for them. Oh my goodness, I could go into business for myself just making coveralls. But there were so many other things that I just grabbed because oh, you can come home with me because I thought it was cool. And then I'm looking for places to store it. Right now I've got a big pile of camping gear on my floor. I put it up for a couple $100, right? Because it's a whole setup. I thought, oh, some guys may long weekend, right? Camping season started. Somebody's gonna want it. But no, we had rain and snow, and right. We had a heat wave and a winter storm all in the same week. It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's kind of weird, but that's the world that we live in now. We have to be prepared, but sometimes in that preparedness, we get a little bit hyper vigilant in that, right? And yeah. So my notes here are pretty tidy, right? These are some important notes that I take out of my books before I throw the books away, right? I exhaust them with my notes, which usually takes me about a month, maybe a couple weeks to fill up a book, and then I'll throw it away. But I'll go through the book afterwards, right? Just to make sure that there's nothing here that I need to keep. And yeah, these things I needed to keep. This was my don't break the chain and my distraction battle plan. Yeah, that didn't go over too good for me. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to try again. And then there's another list here, of those dreams and those goals for myself. And I went a little bit more long term because now I'm looking at retirement for myself, whatever I'm doing from here on. And it's about setting myself up for retirement and putting myself in a comfortable living experience so that I can enjoy being a YouTuber, not worrying about, right, the roof over my head. Because not only do I have a roof over my head, it's not a studio apartment like I have now. Okay, you guys, I'm coming into the comments. Sorry, like I said, I rattled today a little bit, but I rattled because, like I said, I haven't been yapping today at anybody. I just kind of been staying on my own. I've been called, I feel, just to kind of be quiet, to live quiet, and exist quiet, and right. And so that's what I'm doing. But again, there's that feeling of wanting to be on the move and getting things going, and right. The ideas are flowing, but I better turn a fresh page and start all over again. Maybe a little bit tighter. Maybe that's a practice for me. I don't think so. I haven't learned by now. I probably never will learn in that. But you know what? I do learn in that, in the way that uh, I'm able to absorb, right? That when I take those notes, just writing them down in the moment is imprinting them here, right? And sometimes when I look at that note again, I can make that correct connection But if it doesn't connect, you know what? I don't cry over spilt milk, right? And if it's important, it'll come across my path again, 100%. Okay. Um, oh my goodness. Hello, Father Lopez. I hope your spring has been amazing. We're about to roll into summer, and I hope your summer goes absolutely amazing. Praise be Jesus. Oh my goodness. Peace to all. Calm down, Cindy. You're a joy. Thank you. Thank you, Father Lopez. That's very nice of you. Very nice of you to say. But I recognize that in myself that sometimes I do get overexcited in things. Thank you so much for popping into my live today. It's really nice. It's always such a joy, and that's a great word that you use there because it is a great joy when you pop in. Dave, Mr. Lopez, right? If you have the heart. I was just saying a little bit earlier that my sister Tracy is going in for quadruple heart bypass surgery. So, if anybody wanted to give her a little prayer, if you wanted to put her on your prayer list, that would be absolutely amazing. Very grateful for any little bit of consideration that goes towards my family, especially Tracy. She has been so good to me. And at the same time, she has had a pretty rough few years, but lots of us have had a pretty rough few years, right? But to end it again, it's just in that attitude, right? It's that whistle while you work. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Everything is going to be okay, right? And just being that best friend to ourselves, right? Knowing that we can't be any good to anybody else unless we take care of ourselves, right? 100%. 100%. I say that because I try to make mental note when I do some of these. When I do right, I take a mental note of doing that. And it's just a little reminder to say, oh, okay, Cindy, you're at it again, right? And then you just slow it down and help to come back to a better place where you're not repeating yourself that way. Or, the reason I do the right is because I'm looking for that confirmation. I'm looking for that agreement, right? I'm stepping outside of myself, stretching a little bit, and I'm just looking for that. You're right, Cindy. Keep going, Cindy. You got this, Cindy. Oh, never thought of that way. And it just helps to encourage me just to keep going. I don't always get it. I do it for myself, but it isn't it amazing that we can recognize that in ourselves if we're looking for that, right? Okay. Um, oh, William's here too. Hello, William. May long weekend this weekend. I didn't sell that camping gear, but me and my sister will have a garage sale and we'll sell it at the garage sale. I didn't sell it only for the fact because it was so cold. Like it actually snowed right after a heat wave. Like it hit 100 Fahrenheit. That's hot for May, right? That's strange weather, but it's not weather that we're not familiar with, at least here in Manitoba, because we do have the two extremes and it can offer up anything in its extremes for sure. Okay, you guys, that's my live show for this week. I'll be back tomorrow with What's My Good Cheer. Um, we're adjusting in that a little bit, making a few changes, feeling it out, seeing what will work a little bit better along the way. It is a practice, right? But you know what? I'm a work in practice myself, so I'm good with that. You guys, thank you, Kathy. I hope everybody has an amazing week. If I don't see you till next weekend, I know I'll see you next weekend. You guys never let me down. Thank you so much. And don't ever feel that you have to run home to make sure that you're here for me. You guys got to take your breaks from me too, because, right, I can be a bit much sometimes. I recognize that. But you know what? I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity to send some good cheer again, right? Get to your destination, be a false alarm, turn around, come back to the fire station, and fire up that barbecue, right? But most of all, it's a false alarm. Knock on that door, and everything's good. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.